Hello there, listener. Welcome to another episode of Barely Qualified with me, Morgan. Alongside me, as always, is Ryan. We are barely qualified to be talking about Formula One, but we're going to talk about it nonetheless. Now, Ryan, it's so rare to have something to talk about when there's a Monaco Grand Prix going on, but this week there's genuinely some interesting things to talk about with Monaco. So let's get into it. What is on the pod today?
Oh, mate, seriously exciting. I mean, I feel like every week we're getting on this pod now and we're like, well, that was the best race of the season. We've had Canada, and then this. Oh, it was so good. It was good. Um, on the pod, so we go through the race notes as I write them while I watch the race, so they're very random. Starting with qualifying because we have got to talk about qualifying, obviously. So we've got quali, so good. Kimi, quali, wow. Lewis, still got it, baby, which I kind of feel like we're doing every week, but he's getting better and better. Crowded, crowded pit walk. I've got an issue. There's a few
Yeah,
rants in here.
yeah.
Nine laps, big gaps. I put lap 25. Eyes starting to go. So it wasn't exciting necessarily at the beginning.
It was not, no, it was
I
a
was
slow
getting,
burner.
it sort of takes a turn here because I was getting worried. Um, then commentary on Norris. I've actually got to remind myself what that was. But oh yes, I remember. So commentary on Norris, emoji, hands on face. Stroll, fuck me. Um, Russell, it's over. Brackets, outpaced, outsmarted. Leclerc does a stroll, so that's when I started to feel more sorry for Stroll when I realised it wasn't just Stroll. Uh, Kimi, flawless, pit lane speed penalties. What's going on there? I've got a question. I've got a question. We've got Din and Dude. We've got grid rival update. So lots to get through. All of them aren't going to take obviously a decade, but oh mate, I'm absolutely buzzing about this race because it is just so shit normally. So and it was a bit worrying at the beginning, like where I put like big gaps. It was like it was all looking a bit dodgy. But then, yeah, thank God the tarmac was shit and it started to come up. That's all I can say. So I don't want to start with the race anyway because I feel like we have to do quali justice. So quali, so good. Talk to me.
Well, I mean, should we start at the end, which is probably the place to start? Q3, Kimi Antonelli, and that lap. I mean, at this point, everybody's been like losing the plot about just how good that lap was, and we had started eating our humble pie on this pod as kind of everybody has been, and Martin Brundle said at
I
the
think
end
we
of his
inspired him.
commentary. Yeah, well, maybe maybe he listens to the pod and thought, no, I'm going to prove those two wankers wrong. But I thought Martin Brundle absolutely smashed it in commentary on Sky F1. He said, make no mistake about it, this is a generational talent. Again, Martin clearly been listening to our pod and understanding the ranking system, and he wanted to weigh in
Yeah.
on that one a couple of weeks later, of course. But yeah, no doubt, generational talent. He is proving all of the haters completely wrong. If you don't love Kimi Antonelli by now, I don't think you ever will, and maybe you're in for a bit of a bad run because he is gonna be. He look at five in a row. This it's not a flash in the pan anymore. He's had some elements of luck. There ain't no luck in Monaco, and not only that, but he made the race what it was to a certain degree. Obviously, remember what happened last year with all the let's just drive 8 seconds off the pace and create these kind of opportunities where we have one of our drivers pit and then the other driver swaps over and does the pit, which Williams attempted to do, well, did do this year.
Well,
But in
before
general, that all kind
before
of went away. But we'll not get into the race too much. But that
yeah, not
that
into the
that
race.
that
We've got
overall
more on Kimi
qualifying
later.
from Kimi was
Yeah.
just phenomenal. And George, I mean, George is is a great racer and is incredibly fast. And he looked absolutely terrible, terrible in qualifying. Um,
Surprised me. George surprised me at this
really
one because
surprised me.
he's a very. I felt like this is a track where George. could be then really consistent. What I didn't really bear in mind, and I mean, we said on the last pod that we wouldn't be surprised. Obviously, at this point, no one's going to be surprised if Mercedes wins, and no one's going to be surprised if someone who's won 4 races in a row is going to win a fifth. Of course not. It's just stating the obvious, isn't it? But I probably didn't consider that Kimi and Monaco, he has got that kind of. Would I have been surprised if Kimi absolutely crashed it in the wall in in Monaco quali? No. Am I surprised that he's done this unbelievable lapping? No, and I shouldn't have been, and I should have considered that more. I still think because of his age and because of the fact that he's, so young and you and I think it's a British thing that we just have this sort of not glass half empty, but we've always got to put a bit of a negative in there, like, oh yeah, but like we were talking about Mercedes crashing. We feel like there's going to be a crash, but someone's going to crash. And we both just sort of went, yeah, I think it might be Kimi. I think he might get maybe a bit too, go for it too much. And there were moments which made qualifying so good that it was just so unbelievable. Like not even just Kimi, like the fact that I think what did the lead change for quali? Like three in the last lap, three times, four
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
I
it was
mean,
insane. Like
yeah.
Max, unbelievable. Lewis, you know, Kimi obviously, and then was it Charles to put it on? He was obviously like, well, he thought he had it, didn't he? And then he didn't have it, so he went again, and then just went for it too much, and it was like sort of that Hail Mary, as Martin Brundle was saying, Hail Mary, and it was like do or die, and
Yeah.
well, he
And
died.
but isn't that and isn't that funny because we talked about Charles Leclerc, he's got a mistake in him, but he himself is a generational talent, etc. But what was so interesting about Kimi, I mean, Kimi was the same thing. It was a sort of a bonsai lap, only Kimi put it together and Charles got it slightly wrong and so, ended up in the wall. And that's Monaco for you right there. It's those little moments. But not to talk on
Ha-
too much about the race, but actually, I thought just over the whole weekend, I thought Kimi was just so phenomenal. And what really summed that up for me was in recent times.
Well, say this because we've got
Okay,
Kimi flawless at the end.
okay, Kimi
We we
flawless.
we we
Okay,
say we say
okay,
we
we'll
say
save
that for
that for
the
the
end
end. All right.
because I really want to delve into. I think there's a lot to talk about with Kimi and what he did in this race and what it meant and why it was different and
Yeah,
unique
sure.
to the previous races. In the
Yeah.
last race, he was obviously chasing George and hunting him, whereas in this race it was very different. So I want to sort of save that till then.
Okay.
So we've touched on obviously Kimi and how good his qualifying was sort of first, and we've done quali so good. Obviously, other mentions in quali were Hajar was fifth. Another great performance by him. We've said Russell, bit of a shock in sixth. That was really not good for him. Um, and then the McLaren boys weren't really anywhere, were they? Seventh and eighth. Um, I we had then, I mean, Lawson done really well, worth mentioning. Gasly, not surprised that Gasly's in probably the top 10 now, really, this far into the season. And then I suppose another couple of mentions was the Williams, made a big push, 11th and 12th. And then Hulkenberg was a great performance to 13th. And then the kind of others are just similar to how previous races have been, really. They're the ones worth mentioning, I think. So yeah, I was pleased because I had a certain Hulk in the grid rivals this week, and Williams as my constructors. But we get to the race later, which I started crying in. Um, but okay, so that was quali. Lewis still got it, baby. Partly on quali, I thought he was on it through the practice sessions as well, and then quali, even he admitted that they sort of changed something and he wasn't quite feeling it, wasn't on it as much. Kind of did think that Lewis, particularly after a few practice sessions, I thought, oh, it'd be so good if he got pole here because again, I think that if he got pole, I can't really see. I mean, mind you, Kimi did surge up at the beginning, but I just where'd you pass at Monaco and all that. Like maybe strategy would have played a bit. Maybe Mercedes actually looked a lot stronger than I thought they would have been.
Yeah, I think we all thought Mercedes were going to drop away. On Lewis Hamilton, if you look at Lewis Hamilton's Q1, Q2, Q3, he was 2 tenths behind Kimi Antonelli in every single session. So, Kimi's first session, 1:13.6, Lewis, 1:13.8. And it was the same thing, 2 tenths behind in all three of the sessions. Given that Ferrari seemed to be the favourites, given that the way sort of practice was going, at the time, I was a little bit disappointed with that performance from Lewis. And whereas Charles, he was fastest in Q1. He was, he was, I think, maybe third fastest in Q2, was he? And then obviously he was on for poles. So I was sort of thinking, oh, maybe I'm a little bit disappointed because maybe the Ferrari was the fastest car and therefore, he's been beaten by Kimi, but also by Max. Given the Lewis is back kind of chat that we was talking about last week, I was a little disappointed sort of where he was. But actually, on reflection, if you look at the race pace and like what Kimi did on the restart, for example, where he had Lewis right behind him and just disappeared up the road like there was no problem.
Yeah.
So I sort of feel actually now, on reflection, I think Lewis actually was probably not quite on it in terms of like being absolutely banzai on the Saturday, which he kind of used to be, and he's kind of lost that a little bit, but he was consistent, and being 2 tenths behind Kimi every single time was pretty consistent, and Kimi was just on it all weekend. So
I mean, it's funny because with I would have thought that, and look, there's going to be sort of some tracks maybe that, although, like I say, Canada was a big favourite of George's track, and he didn't really dominate that. Kimi was right there with him, and obviously he got bad luck at Canada. But if Lewis was in Mercedes, that'd be quite interesting, wouldn't it, with Kimi? Like, yeah, because because then you've really got the polar opposites. You've got the young buck that's got nothing to lose, and this is why it's going so well for him. It's the same as we mentioned it, didn't we? We're waiting for this to happen. Like we didn't really say that we don't think that Kimi could be this wonder boy. What we were saying is that he's done nothing yet that really gives him the label of wonder boy,
yes,
other than his age.
yes,
He had not done anything. Like what he's doing now is what Wonder Boys do. This is what
yes.
Luke Littler did when he went into the darts. This is what Michael Owen did when he came in, to England at 18 and did what he did. This is what Wayne Rooney did when he smashed that goal in against Everton in the Premier League at 16 years old. Like this is the Wonder Boy. If Wayne Rooney just went on the pitch, ran around, and he was 16, maybe in today's age they say, oh, he's a Wonder Boy. But back then it would just been like, yeah, kid made his debut, didn't do much. It's because of what he did that he becomes a wonder boy. So Kimi just got put into a seat under huge pressure. Well, not, under pressure, obviously, in terms of in the F1 community, but Toto wasn't pressurizing him. He said, look, go out there, have a season, you're a rookie, do what you need to do. He went, he had some okay races, but didn't set the world alight. And they didn't have the car, admittedly. But now they do have the car. He's a bloody wonder boy because he's performing.
And what's
And I
so
just,
funny about that is because the opposite of that is George, right? Like George came in, didn't really have like a wonder boy label, but people were saying, this kid's fast, and George obviously is a very fast driver. But he comes into Williams and kind of smashes it, really, like smashes it out of the park in his time at Williams. Then he's up against Lewis in the Mercedes, but the car isn't there anymore, and he smashes it, right? And he's now finally got that opportunity to smash it in a championship winning car, and he's just nowhere. And
no.
that comment of I would have had 2 titles by now if I'd have started my career a little bit earlier, suddenly is looking a lot more like. But people hated that comment because of kind of what it represents. But a lot of people, I think, also were thinking, well, he's probably right, But now I'm starting to think maybe he's not. Maybe, so it's the opposite of that wonder boy. There are so many drivers through Formula One history who have a certain talent and then at a certain level, but when it comes to like stepping up and you've finally got that opportunity, they just don't have it.
But and like I say, and my comparison was, like I say, sticking with the Lewis, is that when Lewis came into F1, his first season, rookie season, greatest season of all time, but Wonder Boy straight away. Yes, he was older and stuff, but obviously
Well,
older
he
than
wasn't that old.
Kimi. No, but what? You know, he's older than Kimi and older than like Luke Littler. But look, at the time he was like young Wonder Boy, and obviously would still be known if a 21-year-old came in now and did what in his rookie season nearly won the title. He'd be considered a Wonder Boy, obviously. Um, I just wonder how he would be handling if he had the Mercedes. It's almost a bit. I mean, look, I love seeing Lewis in red and the Ferrari, and I think it's a good move. There's no guarantees in F1. You know, it's very easy to look back now and say, well, the Mercedes, of course, they were going to have the best car, but McLaren could have had that unit and come out flying this year with their amazing team and who they've got there now at McLaren, and they could have been carrying on where they left off. So, you know, and Mercedes could have been the second or third best team, even though they've got a great power unit. So there's no guarantees. It just happens that they have got the best car. It would be interesting to see Lewis how he would pit against Antonelli, because again, that kind of experience and being there and done it, which kind of shows now that he's in second in the World Championship with a
Yeah, that's what
car.
I was going to say. You know, I mean, that's kind of the extent to which George is currently bottling this. And I don't mean to like write him off already, but at this point, I think what's interesting, if you look at what George's noise was coming into the weekend, this is Kimi's to lose. I said earlier on in the season, I said, right now, Kimi's got nothing to lose, but he'll get to a point
Well,
where he's got something to lose.
yes,
And
you keep going on to Russell and Kimi. I'm trying to save the Russell to Russell. It's over. Kimi,
it's so hard.
flawless.
I'm just so excited to talk about it.
Stick to Lewis.
All
Lewis,
right,
right?
stick
So
to Lewis.
Lewis. So I think second is because you know, to put that, obviously it looks great at the moment, but George has had some real bad luck last couple of races. Well, some of it bad luck, some of it not right. Like, you know, and we get to that. But Lewis finds himself in second anyway. A couple of niggles with Lewis, you know, to keep nice and partial because people might be thinking that all I ever do is rave about him. He annoyed me a little bit with Kimi. He's driving for Ferrari that want to be, who are an ultra competitive team. And I've literally only just got round to the, God knows how long, finally got through some list of movies and I watched the Ferrari movie the other night. And the standards of like Enzo Ferrari and just the whole makeup of that team and the heritage of it is what it is, and it'd be considered obviously dated now, but right, and it's like Hamilton himself would not have won what he's won if he didn't have these harsh standards. And I'm sure that Hamilton portrays this really nice, humble guy, but really inside, you know, you know, his character, although he's won so much, he's not a Michael Jordan who's just out and out, you know, or even a Max, you know, just like, yeah, I am the best. I'm going to kill you. Like, you know, that's not really Hamilton. So, like, maybe, like, to be fair, he has changed because when it was like Alonso and him in his rookie season, you felt he had this sort of real kind of like, I'm going to beat you, you know, and I'm sure that's in him, like when he goes into the car, helmet on, all that kind of stuff. But he's obviously matured, you know, he's sort of a wiser man now, you know, oldest guy, you know, well, him and Alonso, obviously oldest guys on the grid. I think that um, but the point I'm trying to make is that he was niggling me because of how nice he was being to Antonelli and how he was like, you know, good job, kid. You know, like, I don't know why I'm giving Lewis an American accent.
He gives himself an
Yeah,
American accent
good
sometimes.
job. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Good job, kid. Good job, kid. He's hugging him. He's like all sort of in the room. He goes, and what was he saying? He was saying like,
Is you catching
so
me?
many wins. You're catching me, you know, and like, and I was getting really sort of niggled because I was thinking like, stop it, like, don't be like that with.
So this is kind of what I wanted to talk about, but you're right, I was going too much down the George Russell thing. But you know, George's whole thing was mind games, and his thing that he thought would destabilize Kimi this weekend was to put the pressure onto him and say, "You're favourite for the title now. It's your title to lose." And in my opinion, it's easy to say with hindsight, but at the time I thought, I don't know if that's the best thing for Kimi. Like, because I think Kimi's the sort of person who'll almost be like, well, go on then. I'll take you on. I'll take, don't worry about that. Whereas Lewis's mind game, I think, is to go the other way. And so I think Lewis's thing is almost to be like, it's almost patronizing. Like, you're great job, buddy. You're catching me. You're doing such an amazing job. And next time when Kimmy's coming up against Lewis, as opposed to him being all feisty, I'm going to get my elbows out, I'm going to drive extra fast, I'm super motivated, which is clearly what he is against George. Like, look at the way he was behaving in Canada. I feel like now, if they're fighting for a race win, maybe Lewis's idea is that Kimmy goes, well, that's Lewis. And you know what? I don't have to strain every muscle in my body to beat him. Where in a way that he has to do that with George, because George has laid down the gauntlet and is almost kind of goading him. Lewis is doing the opposite. Now, I know Formula One drivers are, not built that sort of way, but I do wonder whether there's like a subconscious kind of thing that's Lewis's angle of attack.
Yeah.
Kill him
It's
with
almost,
kindness.
it's almost planting a seed in his head of a certain amount of doubt. I mean, what I liked to bring it back, because that's how it sort of started. Then I saw the press conference after, where Lewis, Kimi, and Hajar were in, and I think something was said about like where he was in the championship, like second, and he was like, oh yeah, no, we're going to keep pushing, yeah, we're going to hunt these guys down. I think he said something about like it's easier to be the chaser rather than the leader, and things. So slightly started to just plant the seed of like, oh, oh no, I want to win this championship. If there's a sniff and Ferrari can upgrade, and you've really seen that with Lewis. And I don't know if it's just how they, because I can't imagine he's just suddenly doing it now, but they sort of seem to be showing, and maybe it's because Lewis is doing well that you sort of start to see a bit more of it. But he seems to be really talking
He's
to the team and pushing the team and
he's up in the ante a little.
starting to sort of talk to Ferrari how he was talking to Mercedes in those championship winning years, where he's like, right, come on, like,
And
back at the
that's the
factory, thanks
and
to the
that's the
guys.
experience.
Second was all right today.
That's what George doesn't have, and that's what like Lewis has. Look at
But the way that Lewis is kind of doing it, it sounds very, very sort of like purposeful and like, I'm saying this because I'm saying it for their benefit, that I want to thank them, but I also want my rival to know we're coming.
yeah.
That's third, that's second. I feel like the win is just, we're teetering for a Lewis win soon. Um, and if Ferrari can upgrade and they can get closer, and then Lewis is pushing, we could have a little kind of saucy second part of the season potentially where we could just fuck Russell off out of it, and hopefully Lewis can sort of come in. And also, I wouldn't rule out. I know it sounds crazy because he had his moment, Max, at the start, but it's like I wouldn't even rule out Max if Red Bull gets that, because Hadjar again, good performance by Red Bull in that sense, he can make a push. So the season's looking exciting in that sense. But yeah, those were a couple of things on Lewis. I just thought I don't want him being too nice, but you might be right about him trying to play some kindness mind games. And I liked what I heard in the press conference after, when sort of the adrenaline's all down and it's you're not in front of camera, happen to be like this really ultra friendly guy, and it was then sort of almost like back to business. Oh, there's no doubt. I'm going to chase these guys as hard as I can.
And I
If
think
Ferrari give it to me, I'm gonna deliver, and I'm gonna hunt them down.
I think it's the right play. Lewis's kind of thing has been almost like he's just happy to be here. Like, he's happy to be in the cool down room. I'm just happy that I'm on the podium. I'm not a threat. Don't look at me. I might be second in the championship, but I'm not your threat. George is your threat. Like, that's his mentality, and I think that's the
Which
right way
is
to play it.
which is still, that is the truth. And he's probably trying to stay a bit more humble, not getting too carried away. But that's what I love about sport. I love someone just making a statement and saying, I'm going to knock you out in the first round, and then they get knocked out in the second themselves. And yeah, they've made a tit of themselves, but I liked it. I liked that he said it, and I liked that he was like, like, say what you say about Conor McGregor. I know that he's a controversial character, and I'm not even talking about his recent if he even has a UFC fight, I think he's got one coming up, so he's obviously making a comeback. But going back to when he was kind of at his pomp, and he would say, "I'm going to knock him out in the first round," and he did this in about 5 or 6 fights. Literally did it and delivered, and I love that, and I get it that you're kind of relying on the car a lot in F1, and people can't do that as much, and everyone sort of does play it a bit safe and a bit like, oh, but every now and then it would be nice to be like, oh, I'm gonna go. I mean, they try and get out, don't they? Once they qualify, they say, what are you gonna do? Turn one. What are you gonna do? And he's like, full send, baby, and you're just sitting there going, oh, come
I
on,
feel
and then
like
they just and then have a full start, and or they start slow, and you think, ah, but
well, and that's
I,
exactly that's exactly what happened with Max. If you're going to say there was a really disappointing thing about Monaco, that was it. I feel like Max on the grid, you know, it's going to be a good start was the line that Brundle gave to him on the grid walk, and he was like, "I hope so." And the sort of the way that he says it, Max is going to go full send into that first corner, and love
yeah.
him or hate him, that's why we enjoy Max. And I
Oh,
am
that's what I'm saying. We've spoken about it so many times, haven't we? Characters. I'm just a sucker for. I fucking love arrogance in sports, like confidence and arrogance. I just do. I made a statement once that I don't actually believe that any great sportsman, like as in would be considered a great in their chosen sport. I don't think that you can show me a great that isn't arrogant. Like I've had this argument. Someone like, oh no, such and such. I think someone said like Rory McIlroy wasn't arrogant, and I'm like,
yeah, he is.
what?
Yeah,
What?
he is. The
And
closest you'll get,
and
the
I,
closest you'll get is Federer because Federer oozes class. But if you're not telling
so
me
do
there's
you
an
know what?
arrogance to him,
An arrogance in how he plays.
yeah, and
That's the thing. It doesn't have to be words. It could be I'm going to lob you between my legs with the ball.
yeah,
That's not, you've taken the piss there. That's an arrogance. It's you're saying that I'm so good I can do this. And if people love him, they say, oh no, Federer's not arrogant. It's like the guy's arrogant, like in how he plays. Like, and when he's losing, he's pissed, like most are. But because he believes that he's the best. You can't be a great in any sport if you don't really believe yourself that you are the best. Like Michael Jordan just said it. I am the best. And that was it. Like or to himself as such. Maybe not even to public, but certainly to yourself. That's why we love that kind of like when someone makes a statement in sport and in a race and makes a prediction. They don't have to be 100% right, but boy, I love it when they make a prediction. I think we need a bit more of that. I like to see some people be a bit more ballsy. I feel like this year people are being a little bit ballsy because of the teams having certain upgrades, and Ferrari seem to be having. Lewis is loving it because they're sort of trying all these different types of upgrades, and I think he's enjoying that. And when one works, he's kind of like, there's a bit of a swagger about Ferrari. I'm actually really enjoying kind of Ferrari this year. It's been a long time since they've had sort of some swagger about them. So yeah, I'm loving that. So again, loving Lewis. Couple of niggles there. And I've got a question later for you about his girlfriend. As I was watching the grid walk with Martin Brundle, it was a shit show. It wasn't even a grid walk, really, was it? I mean, he couldn't move, and I
and
was just like,
that's always been the case at Monaco. I will say, I felt like his production team got it a little bit wrong with basically, we want you to start at the front, sort of go into the pack, and then we also
and
want you
then
to
turn
finish
around
at
and
the
go back.
front, which
Yeah,
is
it was a
like,
bit all over. I know
never
it's
going to
normally
work.
all over the place, and that's what makes it funny. But this seemed like really rubbish, like really poor. I actually felt sorry for him because he just couldn't. I mean, I think he said about 5 times to 5 different people, "Don't push me, mate. Don't
Yeah,
push me."
I mean, the line of "Don't push me, I'm nearly famous" was absolute class. Like,
Yeah.
he must have
Um,
rethought about that, but that was
yeah.
an absolutely
Oh, I mean,
class line.
he's absolutely taken the piss, isn't he? But and I don't want to get to a certain somebody on that crowded pit walk because I want to talk about that later. Um, there's a lot I want to talk about later, but just to keep on track. So yeah, thought it was just a really weird grid walk, and I found myself just swearing at the TV. Really, I was just getting really fucked off with it.
I will say that's a little bit the problem with Monaco. I was chatting with my friend on the way to football yesterday, and And he was saying, Monaco's a really interesting one because it's like if you're not a Formula One fan, it's almost like Monaco is the one that you want to watch because it's like the most famous one. And I was like, that's why so lots of people who aren't Formula One fans think Formula One's so boring, because Monaco is the race that they want to watch because that's where all the celebrities are. But
But then if they're all
actually,
there, you saw not
if
look. I'll make a statement now, right?
go on,
I don't give a fuck about the celebrities, right?
no,
They
100%
fuck
don't.
me off, right?
Yeah, me too.
I like it. I like it when Martin Brundle takes the piss out of them.
Yeah,
Like, that's what I like. I like when they sort of walk up and they're like, maybe they try to come to him and they're like, oh yeah, I'm such a big deal. Talk to me. And Martin's like, who is he? Who is? Oh yes. And then you clearly know he knows nothing about this person, doesn't even know them. That's funny. That's beautiful. They don't pick up on it, and you get the odd ones, the loyal ones. The Catherine Zeta-Jones and the who have been there for years, and the Gordons, and they're all right. Like they know their shit. You can clearly tell that they are a fan. But yeah, they fuck me off this series, and Monaco was just the epitome of that. Where I just thought, God, you are just, you know.
it's the ones who turn up and they feel like the fact they're on their grid is about them somehow. Like, I like it when a celeb turns up and they clearly, they say like, this is my first Formula One race, but they're looking around and they're going like, this is phenomenal. This is unbelievable. Maybe they're a sports person or something like that. And you know what they're thinking? They're thinking to themselves, can you imagine or maybe they're a musician, just before I'm about to perform, just before I'm about to go out on the pitch, whatever it is, imagine having cameras in my face, Martin Brundle there with a microphone, tell us what you think. You don't get that in any other sport. And I love when they're bowled over by that. So from that perspective, I've got no problem with the celebrities. And that's kind of the allure of Formula One. It's the pinnacle. It's the sport. It's the sport that everybody wants to be seen at. All of that. I do love that element. But when they turn up and they almost think they're better than Formula One, they're bigger than Formula One. That's when I'm like, fuck off, pal. Like, you should be grateful that you're on the grid because it's an amazing place to be, I would imagine. And us mere mortals are very unlikely to ever be able to be on a grid. What would, someone like you or I do to be one of Marty's random people? We've all thought, fucking hell, I'd love for him to shove a microphone in my face and for me to be on TV and show everyone like how much I love Formula One. Like, so if you're getting that privilege, like, recognize that it's a privilege. And even if you're clueless about it, that's fine. You've got to be excited to be there. Otherwise, what the fuck are you doing? And so, yeah. Anyway, rant over. But yeah, God.
Yeah. Ultimately, to wrap that up, I just think that they're basically desperate, soulless
Sycophants. Yeah, I'm with you.
sellouts. Just
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, right,
Well, then,
moving
back to the
on. So
positive stuff.
I've got here 9 laps, big gaps, and then in with it, lap 25, eyes starting to go. Now there has been some times where I've fallen asleep at Monaco. I'm not going to lie, watching it, and I haven't even bothered to rewind it because I've just thought nothing's changed, and and clearly I'm tired, and so the bit I noticed at the end, like I said, this changed, so we won't stay on this too long, but to just mention the nine laps in, there was a lot of. Did you notice that there was like lots of gaps between? Someone said to me that Russell, it couldn't have been at this part. He was trying to back up the pack, but it wouldn't have been at that stage.
No.
So yeah, 9 laps in, and there was just so many big gaps, and I was just struggling to sort of work that out a little bit because I was thinking I can understand the lead cars leaving, but then I couldn't understand why, say,
The bit that was so hard to
15th was
understand.
so far behind 10th or whatever.
Agreed, right? And like, there's kind of two elements to this. Like, first of all, the fact that Kimi was in the lead was brilliant because he just disappeared, and that, like, they kept saying it in commentary, that doesn't normally
Yeah,
happen. It
doesn't
hasn't
normally
happened
happen.
for a
Yeah.
few years, so it was great that somebody like Kimi was like, no, I'm not going to play any games here. I'm just going to nail a bunch of really fast laps and get myself a really big lead. Came down a little bit because he hit the back markers very quickly because people pitted, but even then, once he sort of got through those kind of initial back markers, that the gap went up to like 8 or 9 seconds or whatever it was. So, he just checked out. What was so confusing then was what happened behind that, like you say, because Hadjar started having issues, but we also saw Gasly had sort of nipped in past Norris, and then they were clearly losing time between them. Norris was trying to get past Gasly, and that just wasn't happening. So they're slowing each other up by the fact that Gasly's going defensive, and so they're definitely slowing each other up. But nobody was ever coming up their arse, so I couldn't quite work out why wasn't anybody filling that gap. But then even worse than that was when Hadjar was having his power issues and clearly was very, very slow. You just expected that Oscar was then gonna, drive up to the back of Hadjar and close that gap, but he didn't. It just stayed at like 3 seconds the entire time. And part of me thought initially, like, oh, maybe he's like playing the long game, keeping his car cool, doing all of that. And I know the McLarens weren't really on it all that much in at Monaco. Their qualifying sort of showed that. But yeah, like Oscar he didn't really drive away from Gasly. He didn't really close up to anybody. And I'm not just calling out Oscar. It was more obvious because obviously he was towards the front. But that was happening throughout, like all the way down through the grid, where you're right, these gaps are kind of appearing and sort of little races within the races. Lots of things weren't happening in the way that I would usually expect them to. Two drivers are costing each other a lot of time, lap after lap after lap. Yet somehow the car behind them isn't closing the gap. It didn't really seem to make much sense. But there you go.
No, it's like I say, I just found that a bit confusing, a bit odd. Wasn't sure what was going on, and then like I say, and then up till about lap 25, it was fairly, other than obviously the initial start with Max and avoiding people going in the back of him and stuff. There wasn't really anything that happened all that much, was there? So it was a little bit as expected normally of Monaco, a bit boring. So this, well, I had to remind myself then the commentary with Norris. I don't know if you noticed, but while everybody was passing Norris, the commentator was just talking about something completely different.
I did feel bad. He probably was like looking at something else, right? I thought it was a bit weird that Martin.
But it went on for so long. Like Crofty was just talking and talking and talking, explaining something and doing this. And I'm like, Norris! and he was just like, oh, what's happened to Norris? I'm like, yeah, what's happened to Norris? It was funny. It was because I don't know about you. I commentate in my head.
In my head, yeah.
As I watch it, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, you're like checking. Yeah. You're checking yourself off against the commentator all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're just doing that, and then that comes up, and in my head, I'm going, Norris. Problem with Norris. Oh no, he's passed, and then I'm looking at the timing screen. Oh, he's dropped 2 places, and while I'm doing all this, Crofty's just going, yeah. So the reason the harbour is so, a lot of yachts are in there, or whatever he's talking about. I just found it really. I mean, at first I was a bit, I don't know why, a bit pissed off. I was like, talk about it. What? Come on! What kind of commentator are you? But then after, I was like, it was quite funny actually that he had no idea what was going on. And because it's Monaco as well, where nothing is going on. Like I say, topic before was 25 laps, nothing happened. This is a thing that's happening, and you're not even talking about it. But yeah, I suppose you're right as well. Brundle must have been biting at the bit to say.
I was surprised that he must have been pointing at the screen or something like shut the hell up, Anyway, yeah, that was quite a funny point. I think what was next on the list?
So next on the list, I put Stroll. Fuck me, I was going to do a big old rant about Stroll. Don't worry, there's no need for another viral video on this because we moved straight on from that because I thought that maybe he'd done something absolutely stupid. I mean, it happened to Stroll, but it was clearly an issue with the track, and obviously Leclerc although Leclerc thinks it was the brakes, which was all very funny and weird, and he's like, I don't know, mate. It's the same thing happened to Stroll, and it was the exact same place and the exact same position. I know you want to have a go at Ferrari, and I know you're upset that Lewis beat you this weekend, but calm down, mate. Um, little stat on Stroll because we just can't let him get off scot-free. So
Sure.
although we're giving him a side on this, I think, and this is taken from I won't call it a rival podcast because I think they are literally on tour at the moment with their podcast. Um, it's not someone I follow, but it's a clip I saw. I think that of Alonso's on a 43-nil qualify winning streak
Yeah.
against Lance Stroll,
Yeah.
which is unbelievable.
The thing is, it's like, like we've been. He's a very unlikable person, and he is not a great driver. But he's like I've said it before. He's not the worst driver to ever come onto the grid. I
That's the
find
pin.
it, I find it staggering, absolutely staggering that it's now 43-0, and he's clearly given up. He didn't, look at the difference. I know he's fighting for nothing, right? So I'm not
And
expecting.
that's against Alonso. That's unlucky at the best of times.
Right, I'm not. I'm not saying Stroll should be banging the steering wheel in the same way as Leclerc, because Leclerc's like lost some points there, and Stroll's lost nothing because he's going around the back. But he doesn't even seem all that disappointed that
Well, this was half the comments, wasn't it, on our video that we did
he's just
about,
not bothered.
literally so many Canadians were just like, why would we be a fan? He literally doesn't care. Or it was always like he doesn't want to be there. Someone even said he wants to be a tennis player. I
Yeah.
don't know, like, yeah, but so yeah, enough about
Enough about
yeah,
Stroll
Stroll.
again, but yeah,
Just
no, it
that's
wasn't
it's
his
just
fault
what
this time. But we were
it's what
ready. We were ready to have Stroll comment. A big old let's laugh at Stroll again. But no, fair enough. Charles went in
so
with the
I'll
exact same thing in the track
yeah,
breaking. Absolutely.
and what I'll do on that, then I'll switch the two around. So we might as well, as it sort of is linked. Charles, then, yeah, obviously, just some drivers kind of saw it. Apparently, Lewis was saying that he sort of did see it, and I think there was a couple of laps I watched where Lewis actually drove over and kept it in the middle,
Yeah,
so he went a bit wider, which is
good bits. Well, I think there's a clip where Perez called it out at like lap 15 or something. Like the track was already starting to break up.
right.
So
And
yeah,
then, because
Perez
I
had
was a little
seen
bit
it.
worried. I was a bit worried at first. They were literally just going to be like really to health and safety and be like, yeah, we're going to end the race because they were talking about that. And I was like, no way, really? But then matey sort of Brundle sorted it, sussed it, summed it up by saying that it's no different if there was a big puddle. You
Yeah,
just got to avoid it, haven't you? You just got to take avoiding action. You know it's there. Don't drive over it. So, and I'm glad they obviously then that's what they sort of went with. So, but I mean, on the for Charles to do that on the lap,
it was the restart. So
because
he's not
yeah,
gone over over the line yet. He's not got the green light, but they are at racing speed. So obviously, we've talked about this before with Charles. You said it about Miami. You said that he was almost playing games. He was being overtaken by Piastri, and he took a different line into the first corner, and then he messed it up and put it in the wall. This was the exact same thing. He went wider than he'd been any other time because he's trying to open up, to get a nice straight line. He knows he can't be overtaken before the line anyway. So he's literally thinking, right, I can take a wider line in, get my car square earlier, get on the power earlier, and then maybe I'll do an overtake. And that's what's done him again. Like, okay, this time it's because there's some dodgy asphalt there, but it's the same thing that happened to him in Miami. He just sometimes he tries to be a little bit too clever. He goes out on a part of the track that he's not been out on before, and it costs him because there's not as much grip out there, and it's a part of the track he hasn't explored at all over the whole weekend.
I
And
mean, and also like I mean, it begs the question as well that like I feel like if this was a Lewis or even a Max now, really, I feel like in that moment you think, right, what race are we at? Monaco. Can we overtake? Probably not. Unless we've got to stay within the pack. Something might happy. Something something might happen. There might be a safety car, whatever. Um, so I'm thinking, right, just bring the maximum points home that you can bring. And this is Monaco. This is, I know it's a home race, but you know, think of the bigger picture kind of thing. And like I feel like that's what's won Lewis championships, over the years, is that just like seeing that bigger picture. Like, I'm just going to get the points and just going to tally up on a bad day. I mean, even Russell was talking about this the other day. So all the drivers clearly know about this, but then they go and do stuff like this. And I mean, and he was absolutely adamant. He's like, oh no, if it was my fault, I've admitted it. I've admitted loads of times when it's my fault, but this time, no. This time it's Ferrari. No, it's the brakes. The brakes are crap. No, it's your fault, not me. Need to move over to Lewis's setup. It's like he was really, and I don't know if that's because emotions were high, because it is his home race. I think when he looks back on that, I think he'll see that maybe he's made a bit of a tit of himself there, because I think he's thinking, I can't admit that I've done something wrong again at my home race.
Even if it was the brakes, you know, he wasn't caught out by something. Like the way he's talking
No,
there,
exactly.
he's
There's
talking
an
like,
issue
there's an
there.
issue. I know there's an issue. We've had this problem before. Okay, so you've driven around it for all those other laps. I think there's a whole bunch of things there. The fact that he's being beaten by Lewis, he's in third, but that's not good enough for him at Monaco. He spends so much of the race on and qualifying and just generally through his career, he's on the limit of what is possible. And I actually thought some of the onboards you watched with Leclerc in qualifying, it was really, really exaggerated. But like going into Rascasse, so the second to last corner, the sort of that double right, he was straight lining that so much more than everybody else, sort of turning quite late. And I thought it was really interesting because none of the other drivers, Max, nobody else was doing that aggressive of a line. He clipped the wall coming out of the chicane after the tunnel, which was because he was straight lining that a lot, whereas everybody else was kind of, taking a bit of a wider line.
Could have just snapped his axle and he would have been out of the race.
He is so close to the edge the whole time. And it's almost like, look, if you know that your brakes are perhaps not the best, you're on colder tires because God knows the safety car, it's going to go the slowest that it's ever going to go at Monaco, because if you're not a Formula One car, driving around Monaco fast is very, very difficult, even if you are in an AMG. So, you're going to have cold tires, you're going to have cold brakes, and you know what? Just be a little bit sensible about it. And what, like you say, what was there to gain? Like maybe he sends one up the inside of Lewis, but almost by the same vein, like Lewis could have tried to send one up the inside of Kimi or done. He's too smart.
I'm trying to remember the sequence of events there, because obviously there was a period where Lewis had a penalty, didn't he? So if he got in a certain set, he knew he had second. But then I feel like they pitted and got rid of that anyway.
Yes. Yeah, so when Stroll crashed, Lewis was ahead of Charles, and
yes, because then I feel like Leclerc was then turning around saying, "Oh, well, why did you pit me?" I had a pit, so it's like, yeah, but how's that gonna look, mate? Like, if we go, well, we pitted Lewis, we've left you out, and you've gained track position, and then he's got a service penalty, and so it's like they needed to bring you in to change your tyres, and
well,
so
he didn't. I do agree with Leclerc on this one. Like, he didn't need to change his tyres. He'd already changed his tyres. And to his point, you can drive significantly slower with crappy old tyres. Yes, it would have cost him a go at the win, but he was in third anyway. So I think it was worth a go to, and he sort of rarely got it wrong. He was like, no, well, Charles had to pit because you don't want to be on the restart when everybody behind you's got fresh tyres. And I'm like, yeah, at every other track, that's true. But at Monaco, that's not true at all. You don't need fresh tyres at the restart. As long as you're a little bit careful around the last corner, which obviously Charles wasn't. But if you're a little bit careful around the last corner, you don't need fresh rubber to stay ahead. So I think he could have taken second, but certainly Lewis would have been quite ticked off about that. So I could understand why Ferrari didn't do that. And it was not like they had a lot of time to think about it. And if you look at
and maybe it wasn't for a win. It's like you say, it's kind of like, to be upset like, or informed driver, say, um, because one finished in second and one finished in third, and just ran whatever way,
To be fair, they would
or
have gotten away with it because, they could have said, well, Lewis, we could have not pitted you too, but then you'd have had a 5 second penalty with a safety car. By pitting you, we got rid of the 5 second penalty for free, essentially, and all it did was cost you a place to Charles, and that's the Ferrari anyway. So it would have been the right thing to do, would be to let Charles go. And even then, what they could have done was use Lewis to protect Charles. Lewis on fresh tires could just, give him a little bit of gap, protect him, and then they could have swapped it. They could have swapped it back around, maybe. Who knows? But
yeah.
but
I mean,
yeah,
I mean, if I was Charles, I would have like been making that call to be like, no, keep me out. I'm taking control of my own race.
and I
Keep
think
me out.
I think there is something to be said that maybe Charles wasn't quite clever enough to do that. That being said, look at what happened at Mercedes, because George, who says they say to him stay out, then he's like, well, I'm coming through the pit lane because the safety car is going through the pit lane. But at no point was he really told to pit. I'm surprised they even had tires ready for him. But
Yeah,
then
they said
obviously
that,
with the
didn't they? Yeah.
confusion that he wasn't really supposed to be pitting, but then he did pit. And I guess they had the tires there because it was such a quick call. They were like, just get both of their sets of tires out and get them ready just in case. So yeah, I guess that the front left or somebody, or front right, somebody. I think it's actually the person who stabilizes the car had clearly forgotten. Oh, he's got a penalty, so don't touch it.
The Jackman.
Somebody forgot, and then that absolutely ruined his race. And
Well, he
that
come
was,
in and the Jackman literally just lifted him straight away, didn't he?
yeah, and that was Russell. Kind of wasn't his fault, but also kind of was, because he was kind of trying to take matters into his own hands and was like, do I pit, don't I? And then just decided kind of on his own he was going to. But then to be fair,
Yeah,
he also got no guidance from his team. It was very un-Mercedes like. It was very
yeah.
like big, lots of rush. They weren't particularly clear about what he was
But yeah,
supposed to do.
you're bang on cue with what you're talking about because Russell is up next anyway. So yeah, all very strange that happening. Um, his penalties were remind me because I'm trying to. What was his
So,
penalties? His
so
penalties
first of all,
were
he got away with the first one, which was that he was right. He was pointing, so it wasn't that he was too far forward. He was pointing so aggressively in his
that's right.
box,
Yeah,
but he was apparently I've not apparently there was like a still of it. He was right on the edge and just about got away with benefit of the doubt, got away with being out of position on the start on the start. Which Perez apparently was pretty much identical, but Perez didn't get away with it. Maybe Perez was like a few millimeters sort of further out of position. Oh no, Perez went into the wrong box entirely, didn't he? So that's a whole different thing. Yeah, but yeah, so he kind of got away with that one. But then the penalty that he got was for
that's what I
he
mean.
cut the line on the exit of the pits, but he got away with that one. Even though we didn't see it, I don't think we ever saw it at any point during the race, but we were sort of told by Anthony Davidson at Sky Race Control that he thought it was going to be a penalty, but it wasn't. But he was done for speeding in the pit lane on the way in, as a lot of drivers were, which may or may not have been his fault, given what we now know. It was basically people were cutting the corner to cut it, obviously not cutting the right hand part, but then it obviously the pit lane does a right and then a left, and it was that left that they were all cutting. And basically, if you cut that, then you make the corner shorter, and therefore, even though you're going the
Yeah,
speed limit, you're
the
now
timing
doing
from
less
there to
distance.
there was then. So even though the speed limiter was on, the time it took from one to the other was
Was too
where they
short.
report speeding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um,
it kind of wasn't his fault, but also it kind of was, because again, it's so surprising. People, they should have caught this during practice. And actually, it
yeah.
turns out that probably what was happening is during practice, the drivers weren't cutting that corner because they're not trying to extract every single last little bit of lap time.
I mean, is it any different from previous years though?
Yeah, it's because we've now got an extra team on the grid. So whereas before there was a barrier there,
Gotcha.
now
Gotcha.
there
Yeah.
isn't a barrier there, because otherwise it would have been too hard for the Cadillacs. I think it was the Cadillacs who were the first pit. So it would have been too hard for them to get around the barrier and then get into their pit lane, which even then kind of speaks to it's interesting that Cadillac didn't get more penalties for cutting that corner, because they kind of had to cut that corner in order to get into their pits. But maybe it's because they're already slowing down, because they're already preparing to stop on their marks. But yeah, apparently that was the issue, and it all does seem a bit
Yeah.
unfair. I will say I was very upset for poor Pierre Gasly, who I've previously said I'm quite a fan of, and I think he was really harshly done by, especially that the second speeding in the pit lane penalty that he got was under the safety car, when the safety car went through the pits. So he really, there was no benefit at all to him speeding in the pit lane, and it clearly was just a little bit of a technicality. So it was really harsh. But look, those are the rules. The rules are what the rules are, and you can't really have any wiggle room on it. So I get why they can't kind of let him off on it. But although I heard that there is an appeal going forward and stuff, so I don't know what's going to happen with that, or if something's already happened with it. I haven't kept up with the news on
I
it.
mean, I don't think they told Gasly either, did they? Until they had another time penalty. So he thought that he had finished third, bless him, didn't he? So, which is obviously what you're touching on, because they didn't make him aware until after he crossed the line, did they?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But great race
Um,
nonetheless. Well done,
and
Pierre.
then there was a load of other penalties and stuff. I mean, bloody hell, we won't go through all those, but I've just moved pit lane and penalties up before Russell, because we need to talk about the actual Russell of, is it over? Outpaced, outsmarted. It's not looking great, is it, for him? It really isn't. I know that, I mean, we spoke about how Piastri and Norris in last year, for instance, Norris was the favourite. Piastri then had a mega start, and it was like everyone. I mean, if you watch, you don't, but if you watch the Drive for Survive, every single part of that episode, there's not one person, I don't think, that says, "Oh yeah, Norris will win it," after Piastri got his kind of lead. And all of last season, I said Norris will win. He will win. Like he for the last few years, he has been, or even before, the last 4 or 5 years, he's been performing very consistently. Outperforming Danny Rick. Um,
Outperforming science
him
too.
and outperforming Sainz, wasn't he? I
I mean,
thought
they
they
were
might have
very
shared the
close.
season
They
each.
were very, very close.
But Sainz was the experienced guy there, right?
Yeah, sure.
So, um, and then has also then sort of had the better of his teammate Piastri. So I thought, you don't just lose that. Now, if he can get his mental state in check, he can come back from this. He can outperform him over the course of the season, and he clearly did, because he won the world championship. The difference, and I thought it was quite comparable to Kimi and George, in the sense that George, ultra consistent, Mr. Saturday, very consistent racing, beat Lewis over 2 years, as he likes to tell everyone, but fair play, takes a lot of consistency to do that. The difference is, and I made a separate point on this with Antonelli, is that we're now in wonder kid zone, and we're in nothing to lose zone. And George, how we find ourselves now is in a mindset of, I want this so bad. And that's a bad position to be in, because the more you want something, sometimes the more likely that you won't get it, because you want it too much.
Yeah.
And you start to then make mistakes that you wouldn't normally make, and you try to overdrive the car, or the usual terminology that everyone uses. But that's the reality, is that he wants it too much, and he's not being patient. And I think that when he's then tried to be patient, he's like Canada. I felt like he kind of had a reset and then had terrible luck. And you don't want to get into that zone of feeling sorry for yourself. Now he's at Monaco, and the team make a mistake with him, and he could have got some points, and it wouldn't have been as bad. But because of them touching the car and doing what they're doing, he's then at the back. I mean, it's mental. You could have a worse thing, like he was second from last, right, and his teammates won it. Like, you can't have more of a contrast weekend than that. Like, if you don't finish, you could say, well, like Canada, my engine failed me. But when you're here and he's there, that's a tough mental thing.
Well, especially as like Canada was in no way his fault, and like you say, he was doing everything right. The mental reset was there. The difference with this race was that the reason that all those things start to happen is because he didn't qualify well, which is normally his bread and butter. Like you say, Mr. Saturday, he was badly out qualified by his teammate, and I know that the actual time difference wasn't very much, but Monaco is a relatively short lap. It's a very short lap in terms of distance, and still pretty short lap in terms of time. So yeah, to be that far back in qualifying was pretty bad from George, and everything then sort of cascades from there. In a way, if you remember back to the Vettel years when Vettel just used to stick it on pole, drive away, and like people even got to the point where they were saying Vettel can't race. He's not a racer. He doesn't know how to do wheel to wheel racing because they hadn't seen him do any wheel to wheel racing for so long because he just FO'd from the very beginning. That is how you dominate a championship, because you literally, like, whatever bad luck you may have, you are doing everything you can to give yourself the best opportunity to have good luck and removing the opportunity to have bad luck, right? And by qualifying sixth, you are opening the window for bad luck to walk through. And he could have been crashed into at the first corner, might not have been his fault, but you open yourself up to those opportunities.
Put himself in that position, yeah.
Exactly. And so everything that kind of happened to him wasn't his fault, but at the same time, it's a cascading problem from a bad qualifying. And like you said, it's that mental state. And I had a really interesting thought during the race, right? Because they kept trying to slow Kimi down. Like, Kimi, you don't need to be doing fastest laps. You've got so much of a gap. You're winning the Grand Prix. Could you please slow down? And I thought, who have I heard comments like that to in the past? Max and Lewis, but certainly Max. Max, stop going for fastest laps. We don't need it. And GP constantly telling him, could you please slow down and just bring the car home? And him going, no, I'm not going to do that. Smashing the fastest lap and still bringing the car home. And that is what Kimi was doing here. He was like, I don't care. I'm just going. And I thought, what would George do? George would not be putting in those times. He would not be hitting the fastest lap because he's sensible. He's almost like an engineer himself. He's a bit of a dork, right? He's quite sort of naturally cautious, and he.
But I do think he would be a silent. I do think he would be a bit of a silent assassin in that sense. Maybe not as consistently. Like I get what you're saying here, because I feel like that's in Antonelli's nature. I feel like it's in Max's nature to do that. Lewis, George, I feel like would do it to prove a point one weekend because he wants to really ram it home that, like, I've killed you this weekend. And I do think that there's times that he could do that. Do I think that it's in his nature to do that? I don't know, and I don't want to be too harsh because it also could be, he could be a bit of a silent assassin, George. And I am holding out for, I'm not worried that George doesn't have the mental strength, because I do think that he is a very confident guy. And I think that he's very sure of himself. And the reason why he got some stick at the beginning of the season was because he was a bit cocksure of himself at the beginning of the year. And that let him down. And what he is doing now is he's now having to not only reset from this kind of like, Jesus Christ, like, and he's shown this a couple of times with the comments that you've mentioned about, like, I could have had 2 world championships and this. What he's saying is that should be me. Like, looking at Kimi now, he's saying that should be me.
Yeah.
And that is really not the way you want to be going about this.
No, 100%.
He wants to be sitting there saying, this kid has got nothing to lose, and he knows that I'm nearly 10 years older than him. And I've got to take my opportunity. So he has that on me. Like, he knows that he's going to be in F1 for the next 20,
20 years if he wants to be. Yeah, why not?
Right? I mean, Lewis is, so I'm thinking he needs to look at it now and literally go right back to basics of, like, I'm not even thinking about the championship, because he was obviously thinking about the championship because he mentioned it so many times even before the racing started. And then he's mentioned it every weekend since. When Kimi won his first race, they will say, no, no, don't think about the championship. It's now impossible for him not to think about the championship because he's winning 5 races in a row. So it's just stupid if you're saying, oh, yeah, I'm not thinking about the championship. Of course you are. And you probably were anyway because you were in the best car, but you were always going to say that you weren't because you thought you were going to win races here and there. But now you're winning every race every week. George needs to literally just go back to, right, this weekend, this weekend, this weekend, this weekend, and just go from there and start building and building and learning from maybe Max, and maybe even free himself and say it's very unlikely that I'll now turn over this points gap. So, and try to take the I've got nothing to lose away from Kimi and say that I've got nothing to lose now because it's kind of already gone. So I'm just going to drive, got nothing to lose, and just drive a bit more freer. You know, he feels like he's got a handicap on him. And the worst thing is it's not like last year where Piastri and Norris were thinking, well, similar ages, they got to take their opportunity because McLaren might not be around for years winning championships. So they're both kind of in the same position. Norris, Russell and Antonelli are not. Antonelli literally has nothing to lose, and it's so powerful. And this is why you see so many kids and wonder kids do what they do, because this youthness and this not, sort of like the fearlessness of them is he's literally 18, 19. He is going to be around for ages. And it'd be pretty bad if Mercedes don't have a championship winning car for the next 15 years if he stays with them and all this kind of stuff. So it's just like, yeah, like, look, I've got nothing to lose. I'm just going to go for it. And Russell just does not know how to handle that. And I
Yeah.
think that he just needs to almost just, in a way, like Norris last year, just kind of like just go silent and just go back to like giving shorter answers in the press conference. Like he opened up again a little bit in the press conference. Yeah, I don't know. I just got to take a look at myself. Really, I don't know. The car's not suiting me, and it's like just don't get into all that
No,
stuff.
he
Like
doesn't. He doesn't need to be
just,
getting into that. And
just say terrible weekend.
just say it was a bad
What
weekend.
else?
And you
What
know
else to
what?
say?
Kimi
Bad
Kimi was
weekend.
Kimi was better than me this weekend. But
But you
that's
don't want to be
fine.
saying that. You also don't want to be saying that every weekend because the press be like, well, why is Kimmy betting you? Why is Kimmy betting you? Why is Kimmy betting you? So it's like I just feel like all these media trained sportsmen, right? I mean, I'm not saying don't go to the press conference and that. I mean, you're going to get fined and stuff, but it's not like they're not short of any money. And I'm not saying just pay the fine and don't turn up because you're creating more of a thing. I'm saying turn up and like Lewis in a way. I know everyone's like, oh God, he's just depressed. He's so depressing. But he's like, but I'm not going to sit here. What you want from me is you want me to spill my feelings and tell you how everything about it. It's like, no, just say bad weekend. Got to be on it next weekend. Got to be on it. And yes, there's a championship over for you. Do you think the championship's over for you then, George? We'll find out. More races to come. We'll
Yeah,
find out. And
exactly.
just keep doing that.
That's what I
Short
think.
answers.
He doesn't need to throw in the towel, but he also doesn't need to make it about the championship anymore. And like you say, that's a great answer to the question. Is the title fight over? We'll find out. We'll find
Yeah,
out.
more races. There's more races.
There's a
We'll
lot of
find out,
races
won't
to
we?
go. We'll find out.
Mm.
The gap's big. I'm not looking at the gap anymore. Each week, I'm just going to try and maximize my points and going to try and get 25 points every single week. And if that happens, then great. And when it doesn't happen, I'll look at why that hasn't happened for that race specifically. But I'm not going to stew over it. What have we got? We got Spain next, haven't we? I'm just going to focus on
Yeah,
Spain,
Barcelona. Yeah.
and I'm just going to
I mean, I
focus on
mean,
that. And hopefully I can get
and
a
and
race
and
win.
and, it, and he should be quite strong at Spain. To be fair, he should be quite strong at Barcelona. So, again, I might even back him for the win, but then at the same time, momentum and confidence, like
Look,
it's
look, we
difficult.
backed him. We backed him to win Canada. Yeah, I mean, we backed the Ferraris to win at Monaco, but I think we both backed George to have a better weekend than Kimi because, like you say, I think we both thought that if there was a mistake in a Mercedes, despite the fact that Kimi had won four in a row, I think we still thought that that's where the mistake's coming from. After this
Yeah.
week, At the end of
Let's move
China,
on to
he was on the last lap. He was spinning up his rear tires and doing all of that before he'd crossed the line. And I remember thinking like, oh, that's quite cocky, isn't it? That's quite like he did the same thing in Monaco. You know,
Yeah, he did. I was going to
coming
say
out of Rastas,
he was literally squirreling it.
he
And,
was squirreling
yeah,
it, like showing off. And I just think, man, if you're showing off like that, you know, already in the season, this kid, I think putting pressure on him is not going to do anything, honestly. So at this point,
because there is no pressure. It's like stop playing that game.
yeah,
There's no
you're
pressure.
trying to play.
You're not going to say to a 19-year-old like, oh, you know, this is like you're only a year. It's like give over.
Yeah,
I'm 19, mate. Like,
yeah.
so it's just not going to work, and
That's
that's
why the
why he is
Lewis. That's
so.
why the Lewis plan of attack, killing with kindness. I
Yeah,
think it's the only way to play it with somebody like Kimi, and treat him
yeah.
like he's your little brother, you know, and get him to be so desperate to
Maybe like you
better
say,
than you.
patronize him. You know,
Patronize
I mean,
him.
to be fair, George had kind of been doing that, you
Yeah.
know, but because they're teammates, it just makes him look like a dick if he's not winning, and so yes, Lewis is doing that, but again, Russell can't really do that unless you're winning. Like if he wins next week and goes, oh yeah, well I let the kid have a few. You know, say Russell wins the next three races, right? And he's sort of like, and he's back in it. Maybe you could then say, oh, well, I've let the kid have a few. But then at the same time, you really don't want that biting your ass. And it's not like Kimi, like, I've put Kimi flawless here because he's drove Monaco like a bloody veteran. Like he was flawless, you know, he was unbelievably quick in Canada. You know, he's been ultra consistent. He's now at Monaco. It's a test. Test, yeah, pass that with flying colours, mate. And like, as you say, he took the piss out of Monaco. It's almost like, do you just forget about playing games altogether?
Yeah.
Like, do you literally just now sort of go, I'm just not going to talk about him? Like, if you're going to, when they say, like, oh, Kimi, how's he? He goes, yeah, he won. That's, you know, oh, yeah, well, you know,
Don't
good
feed
old
it.
Kimi, and
Yeah, yeah. Don't feed it.
congratulate. Don't entertain any of it. Like, go ultra silent and just be steely. And then just, you know, like, there's no point pretending that you're not pissed off. There's no point pretending that you're not annoyed that you're 19-year-old. Obviously, you are. You don't need to tell them that, but you also don't need to pretend that it's just like, just don't entertain any of it. And if reporters are seeking more from you, what are they going to do? Sue you? Like, just don't entertain it. Just that would be my advice to him. It's just like literally get yourself into like a bloody room. And also, I think he just needs to chill out, go and do some stuff. All your hobbies that you're into, just go and do those and just really take your mind off of
It's
like
tricky for him
um
because it's straight
because
into Spain.
Kimi will have a bad pack. Like what you need to make sure in every championship is that when it happens, when Kimi goes through a run of tracks that maybe aren't quite his cup of tea, or you
Has a
know
bit of bad luck. Yeah.
he gets a bit of run of bad luck or whatever, doesn't quite qualify that weekend, or it's a wet race and you know something happened in that, whatever. You got to make sure that you're there picking up those pieces and that you're still in that fight and in that mindset. Literally, we're six races in. In some ways, I can't really believe the negativity of Russell because I just think like you've got the quickest car, you are six races in, and you're acting like there's three races left in the thing. Like I'm not entirely. That's a bit harsh. He's not like fully depressed, but it's like just be more like yeah, the beginning because it is the beginning of the season. Just like the beginning of the season, roll it out. I'm looking at the next six races.
Yeah, and that's what he needs to do. Draw a line
I'm
under
taking the
it.
next six races.
Draw a line under it, and say, right, I'm going to pretend that was a six-race championship. Kimi's won it. Well done, brilliant. Right, new championship. We're all starting on zero, and I'm just going to try and win the championship from now. A little bit like how, you know, if your football team is 2 or 3 goals down at half time, the manager almost sort of said that common cliche.
They won the first half.
Yeah, win the
3-0.
second half, lads. Lads, if we win the second half, we've done well. And you know full well that that's not what you're planning on doing. What you know full well that what you're planning on doing is scoring the first goal, and then hopefully you'll get a bit of momentum up, and momentum is everything in sports. So that's what he needs to do.
Yeah.
Restart and go right. It's zeros. Anyway, let's move on from what Russell needs to do
Like I
because
say, Kimi,
he's
Yeah.
moved on. What's next on your list?
So
Yeah,
let's do Dude and Din.
yeah.
Din and Dude. Um,
Dude of the week is obviously me because last week, well, in the Monaco preview pod, I made the most ridiculous call of all time, and I said that Fernando Alonso would would finish in the top 10, and he's finished in 10th. And I just think that even I didn't believe it when the words came out of my mouth. Cannot believe that that prediction came true. And it happened exactly how I said it would as well. I said it won't happen like through good qualifying. They'll qualify really badly. They did. They qualified awfully. He was last except for to his teammate Stroll for 43 and 0 or whatever the stat is now. So, they were nowhere, and obviously it was a bit of a crazy race, which is kind of what I thought would happen. And he, wily old fox that he
do,
is, has
do,
finished 10th.
do, you-
Can't believe it.
do you know why that is a bit is so annoying? Because the only reason that Alonso finished in the top 10 was because my prediction of Sainz being in the top 10 would have meant that Alonso wouldn't be in the top 10, and I'd be sitting here now saying, hey, Sainz in the top, although it wasn't as a crazy a prediction. But the only reason Sainz isn't sitting in that top 10 is because old Dilbert spun him out. Well, to be fair, he spun himself out because he just cut back in, didn't he? But
Yeah, it's like, so obviously just wanted to say what an amazing prediction that was from me. Thank you very much. We'll see what my top 10 happens this time. But my actual dude of the week is George Russell, and the reason that I'm saying that is that I know you're looking at me, but
what?
he did something very, very clever when you're going, right, he's got a drive-through penalty. What's he going to do on the restart? He literally backs everybody up. And the reason that I've given him Dude of the Week is because the carnage that happened behind him was so fabulously entertaining. I was watching it and I was like, I can't not look, but I feel like this is just absolute carnage. They are swarming like bees around him, and there is not enough space for all those cars. I was amazed that it was only Sainz who didn't walk out of that one, because I just thought, honestly, I just thought there's going to be a huge smash up here, and it was amazing that that didn't happen. But yeah, that it was so entertaining. So he's my Dude of the Week for creating just a moment of absolute, just pure drama TV chaos at Monaco. I was very here for it. What a lap or two that was. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it.
My Dude of the Week. Um, I was going to go with potentially a drive. I was going to go with Kimi because I just thought he was
No,
unbelievable.
flawless, like you say, flawless.
But now that you've said what you've said, I kind of feel like maybe I want to go a little bit uh, left field. I might go for Martin Brundle for saying, "Don't push me, I'm nearly famous."
No, it was phenomenal.
I really, really like that. So I'm just going to go, and I hated the grid wall, and I felt incredibly sorry for him. So I'm going to go Dude of the Week, Martin Brundle, for
Yeah,
that comment.
love it, love it.
Um, and then Din of the Week.
Well, it's got to be George
For
Russell, isn't
me,
it?
it's well, maybe not George, but maybe I was thinking maybe Mercedes, because it's like they really fucked him with the like not leaving his car to for the 5 second penalty. So, and also it's a bit of a rookie. It's a real
It
rookie.
was quite a
It's a
rookie mistake.
din. It is a din low thing to do,
And you know
isn't it?
what? We
So
we said like what during the one thing that Mercedes had really like nailed down was just consistency of strategy. But yeah, this was a massive oversight, really. That I was so surprised when they played it back after the race, and we kind of sort of saw it happen in real time. I was so surprised that they didn't have a sort of backup contingency for that. Like, if there's a safety car now, that would mean that Charles wouldn't be held up with the 5 second penalty. Blah blah blah. So clearly the race strategists are thinking all the time, what if there's a safety car now? What if there's one in 5 laps? What if there's one in 10 laps? So I can't believe that they didn't have some sort of strategy worked
and I
out
can't,
for
I
him.
can't, I can't quite remember. I can't now remember who it was, but someone was literally talking to their driver and saying, "Yeah, this is what we need just to prevent." He goes, "Oh, well, why are we doing that?" He goes, "No, we're not doing that. That's if a safety car comes." So they're like, planning, saying,
That was
if the
Mercedes.
safety cars
That was Mercedes saying that to Kimi. Kimi was like, "Why are we going to pit?" And he
right.
was like, "No, I'm not saying
Oh,
you're pitting.
yes.
I'm just saying
Right.
if there's a safety car." So they were planning
Mental.
for it, but maybe
Yes,
they were just
yes.
so busy looking after Kimi.
Oh, yes, because it's Kimi's team.
You know, maybe. So maybe are they Dins of the week for just putting all their...
Toto up on the podium. Oh, look at him up there with Kimi and Hamilton. Again, great. That's mentally brilliant for Russell, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. Hammer away, Toto. Really, really wind the knife in.
Yeah,
Like,
and all the jumping into the harbour and all that. I just thought that it was so amazing how, like all of Mercedes, like obviously George wasn't there, and like why would he be? But like, yeah, they were just sort of just a reckless abandon of Kimi's won Monaco, and why wouldn't we celebrate the crap out of this? And rightfully so. But yeah,
Toto did cover himself because Toto said that I need to remain a bit balanced because
Yeah.
Russell's not had a good race. As long
he's
as you
had
say that, it doesn't matter what you actually do. As long as you say that,
Yeah.
then you obviously are impartial and fairly even. But
yeah. Anyway, so
yeah,
okay,
but so yeah, so my dude is Martin Brundle, my dude is Mercedes. I seem like you agree with me on Mercedes.
I do, yeah.
So let's do a quick revival update then. Oh,
I am amazed.
It was all going. It was all going so well.
Well, I'm amazed that
And
you've
then-
actually checked your grid rival for this for what's actually happened after famously after Canada thinking you'd had a shocker and then realizing that you'd had a world.
I know. Oh
At
god, that
least
was so
At least
funny.
you've paid attention this week, so there's
Right.
that.
So he's going for the most DNFs for the year. So he didn't finish, and he also, I mean, didn't qualify very well. So really, he
Bad
just
points.
didn't do
Bad
anything
points
for me
there.
anyway. He was always going to lose me money.
Yeah,
But I did put Williams in, which I thought was a great shout. And it would have been even perfect
It
if
would have
Sainz
been.
remained.
Yeah.
And they were going for them, and they were obviously battling. They were swapping each other around and holding people up, and they were really going to cement that ninth and 10th. So I was gutted.
Well,
because
also,
I
if
would
you
have
look,
obviously let Will touch.
Williams didn't lose or gain any money, so their value stayed the same, which indicates, so them finishing 8th and 16th is kind of par for the course. So if they'd have finished, 8th and 9th or whatever they were on for, then yeah, they would have got good points, but they also would have grown quite a lot in money. So you were quite
Yeah.
unlucky on that. I will say.
Whereas I earned nothing from Williams, which is
Yeah,
shocking.
so you weren't nothing, but you didn't lose
Shocking.
anything, so that's nice. What you did lose
No.
was George, obviously.
Yeah. So that's on me. Colapinto, I had him from a previous week, to be fair. I wasn't particularly thinking
He was
that
not the
he'd race
Alpine to have, and actually, he's been doing quite well recently. But I thought he had a bit of a nothing.
Yeah,
Monaco.
I kept him in on Monaco because I just thought that he looks like Senna, and
He does have
Senna is the best racing driver ever to race at Monaco. So I just thought, yeah, that's why I kept him
well,
on for that.
he didn't look like a Senna this weekend, that's for sure.
No.
Then you had Lewis.
Hamilton. I had Hamilton, which was
Obviously-
good.
obviously
Good.
your
That was all
highlight.
good. And then I had Hulkenberg, which I thought out of all the drivers, I obviously had Hadjar last week, and I lost him this week because I didn't have him in for more than one race. I certainly wish I did because
Yes.
I would have obviously had him as my star driver. But I think Hulkenberg, if I look at how they finished,
Well, he
there
finished. He
wasn't,
finished 13th. He
So to be fair, there was actually a few that could have been a star driver. So we had Lawrence.
he
we
looked
had,
like he looked like he was going to have a better race
Albon,
than that.
Ocon.
He looked.
Ocon, where did Ocon come from, man?
Well, this is it.
And you've got him, haven't you? You've got Ocon, haven't you?
I turbo drived him, mate. So don't worry about that.
Shocking!
Don't worry about
Shocking!
that.
Like, why? So Hulkenberg was my star driver. That was me. So you, Ocon, talk to me.
Ocon.
What? Where?
I sort of looked through the history of Monaco. I thought Ocon's sort of generally done okay. He's French, so there's not quite a home Grand Prix there, but it's as close as they're going to get now that we don't have France on the calendar anymore. I think he's always done reasonably well at street circuits when he's not been crashing wheels with his teammates, as he tends to do at street circuits. I guess I got a little bit lucky. He didn't get a penalty for breaking the speed limit in the pit lane, which God knows seems like pretty much any of them could have got. So that worked out quite well. And I was going to put Gasly in, but I don't think I could afford him. So, I didn't put Gasly in. Obviously, Gasly would have been amazing and then disappointing because obviously he dropped down. But I couldn't afford him, so I went for Ocon instead. I had Charles Leclerc, so that was my sort of one downside. But I will say I don't think there were many people on Grid Rivals who would have escaped a DNF because there were obviously quite a few of them.
I did say there'd be 5, but I was just out with, I think there was 6.
There were 6, weren't there? Yeah, so you were pretty close on that one. I had Colin Pinto, same as you. I had Lewis, same as you. I had Gabby Bortoletto in the Audi, and I fancied him to finish top 10. He finished 11th, and pretty much I think he only finished 11th because of like penalties to everybody else, pretty much. But or maybe did he have a penalty himself? He might have done. But anyway, he had a bit of a nothing weekend. Ended up finishing 11th, which was quite good for him, and he made some money. So the overall Grid Rivals update looks like this. Ryan lost 2.9 million. I gained 2.6 million. So that's quite a swing there, mate. Woo, that's quite a swing in value. So my value now 120.4. Ryan's 113.8. So almost 7 million difference between us. And I gained 141 points over Ryan, so I am now 5,725. Ryan is 5,332, so roughly 400 points between us. Not looking good for you there, pal.
As last week's showed, I gained a phenomenal amount of points, so I just need a couple of.
Just need to do it again. So talk to us about Spain, because obviously we Spain's going to come up straight away, so we're not going to do a Spain preview pod because we ain't got time for that. So, let's do a top 3 and a random top 10 for them. What are you thinking for Spain?
I go. I keep going against him, but I will, because I'll get it right one week. I'm gonna go Russell for the win.
Okay.
There's gonna be a bounce back.
There's got to be at some point.
Barcelona could be there. But I mean. Again, Kimi wins it over, and then I'm not shocked at that. But this is why we do predictions. Everyone's got to be different. I'm going to go Russell for the win. I think it's going to be a bit of a thriller between him and Kimi. I'll go Kimi second.
Yeah.
And I will go Max third.
Damn it. I thought I was going to steal in there with a Max. I fancy Max at Spain. I think the Mercedes will be the fastest car. I think the Ferrari will be the second fastest car. I think the McLaren will be the third fastest car. And then I think it will be Red Bull. I think Red Bull are quite good in the slow corners, of which there are a couple, but it's quite a lot of medium speed corners, which I don't think Red Bull are that great in. But I think that's where Max really shines, and it is a bit of a driver's circuit in Spain. So, yeah, all right. I'm gonna go against you though. I think Kimi's gonna get 6 in a row. I'm sick of not backing him, and which we constantly keep saying it's got to end at some point. But I'm a full convert now. He was flawless in Monaco.
I mean, I'm fully
surprised.
Converted. I'm fully converted to Kimi. Like, for me, Kimi's winning the world championship.
I mean, right now, it's very obvious to say, right now, if you're going to back anybody, you back Kimi, because he's 66 points clear and 68 points clear of his teammate. But it's certainly not over. But, it's I agree, right now.
He's got nothing to lose. He's just got nothing to lose. It's so powerful.
I think Kimi, and I think we're going to have an exact copycat of the last 2 races. Kimi first, Lewis second. So I'm going to go Lewis second again. Then I'm going to go Max third. And then, probably Charles or something fourth.
Lewis and a Max battle.
And I think George might just have a shocker again. It's just
Oh
falling
my
apart for him.
God,
So
George not even in the top three.
not
Wow,
even in the top three for George. I think maybe
proper
reliability. I
bottle
don't
job.
think it will necessarily be his fault. Yeah, we'll see. He'll prove me wrong now.
Really,
He'll stick it
three.
on pole. He'll drive away from the beginning, and finally he'll do what we've kind of been expecting him to do all season long. He'll finally sort of deliver on it. Now that I've said that he won't, that's kind of my like bit of
Okay,
reverse psychology to get George to succeed.
right. Cheeky top 10 then. That's a bit more of a tricky one, that. Cheeky top 10. Do you have one in mind?
Well, it's a tricky one because the point of the cheeky top 10 is it can't be too obvious. Limblad should have finished top 10 in Canada, didn't get to start the race, finished sixth in Monaco, bloody brilliant. He looks like quite a driver. It wouldn't be that much of a surprise. The Racing Bulls looks really fast. Liam Lawson
Yeah,
came fifth.
I still think picking those two would be a surprise if we're going for like, um, um, if we're still saying that Alpine are probably the fifth best team.
Yeah.
I think that any driver that isn't Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, McLaren, or Alpine is probably a could be considered a surprise top 10.
Okay, well,
I think
I'll
that's how
go.
I'm looking at it.
I'll go for Lindblad again. If nothing else, I think Lindblad's had a brilliant season so far. Liam Lawson has 26 points and Lindblad only has 13, which so Lawson's got double the points of Lindblad. And I don't know what Grand Prix I've been watching, but that's not what I would have thought would have been the case. So I mean, I know
Yeah,
Lindblad's been a bit unlucky, but
ultimately, yeah, Lawson's been definitely been more consistent than Lindblad. I think that Lindblad, when he's got his positions in the races, it's been more sort of surprising and more kind of like noticeable. But Lawson has chipped away at us at the points as what he's got. So
and the racing bulls, it looks like a pretty fast car. So yeah, I'll go Lindblad this week.
okay, I will go. I think that I'm gonna go for a bit of an outsider. I think like could like just bounce back and he looked pretty pissed after this weekend. I'll go Ollie Behrman.
Yeah, I was looking at Behrman. I think he's due one. The thing I think about Haas is like they're the only team on the grid that don't spend up to the budget cap, and we've seen
Yeah,
we've seen this
said that, didn't they? Yeah.
sort of every year with them that when they start well, they fall away quite quickly. They don't have that speed of development. As far as I'm aware, they've got no upgrades going into Spain. I think that they had a fantastic start of the season. I think Behrman is a brilliant driver and will get the maximum out of that car. Love to see him in a better car than a Haas, if I'm being frank. I really worry about Haas. I hope that they have a good mid-season upgrade coming soon. Realistically, they'll probably then drop away again for the end of the season because they just don't have the budget there. But yeah,
I don't see Ollie Behrman getting into the top 10 by just being with them all just driving. Something's got to
yeah,
happen.
something's got to
So
happen for him.
I'm going with something will happen, and he luck might come back round to him with his and he gets in.
I think Spain might be possibly the second worst. It's a really hard track to overtake on, and because it's got so many medium speed corners, historically it's been like impossible to follow each other. So you just get no overtaking in Spain historically at all. But I'm really hopeful this season because of the new formula. I think we're going to see a half decent Spanish Grand Prix. So fingers crossed it happens. And I think that would be yet another feather in the cap of the new formula that we're currently seeing, that it just is delivering good races. I don't think we're going to see any weather, so we're not going to get bailed out by that either. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, Max might just drive into the side of someone again.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
That's entertaining.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. My question to you, Mr. Richardson, is Kim Kardashian
Yeah.
and Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
I don't fucking get it. We spoke about today him being all like nicey to Kimi Antonelli and like humble and all this, and some people might say I don't buy it, I don't believe it. I think that Lewis isn't actually like that, and whatever. Sometimes you can only judge someone by their actions. Like losing in Abu Dhabi 2021. Very respectful person, kept his composure, all this kind of stuff. So let's just judge him by his actions and not say that he's fake or that he's not, this and that, the other. He for me, is someone that I think has spent a lot of time with his dad. He's got a certain sort of outlook on life and a certain like sort of a moral compass and a code of kind of like life. I then think that over the years he's then comes across the type of guy to me, and I personally think that I would put myself in this category of really learning about yourself and really like why wouldn't you want to improve yourself? Like if there's something that you maybe do that you think I could be better at that, I could do better at that, then why not fix it and why not be better, a better person overall, whatever, better communicator, better whatever it might be. That's how I see him. I don't know lots about Kim Kardashian, but I don't. The reputation that she has would not be someone like that. I also think because if Lewis is like that, then why would he then go out with someone? She has had a lot of work done. She is not what you would describe as a natural beauty. I would have thought that Lewis's personality is of someone that would then be attracted to someone who is potentially a bit more humble and um, you can still be beautiful um, in that way. So, and she's obviously monetized vanity, really. Is her business. She's a billionaire because she sold her herself, really, her looks. There's some celebrities that have completely sold their soul, and you've got other celebrities that are celebrity because they've just done a thing or done well in that, and it's attracted people towards them, and they are in celebrity culture. But Kim Kardashian, for me, is a was always out to find fame by her and her family of literally selling their soul. So I don't understand like where then you've got this one personality in Lewis, and then you've got her, and then picking up on just like body language, like when he went to kiss her, it was all very a bit awkward, wasn't it? Like they didn't like he kissed her neck kind of thing, and when I think back to like him and Nicole, Nicole was, and people are different, but she was very affectionate, very like cheerleader like, very American, but but she was, you could sort of see that that there was like a love there and things. Um, so I don't really, I don't get that. I also then thought to sort of back up my assumption of her is that Martin Brundle tries to talk to her. I mean, that in the moment I'm thinking that'd be all over the news because it just is, and then it turned out it was all over the news the next day, and every bloody channel was picking up on like, oh, Kim, Monaco Grand Prix, and like he said to her, he said, oh, look, people used to have a chat with us on the grid, and like again, you think Lewis would have told her when you're on the grid, people are going to want to talk to you. He would have said that to her. So then I kind of then feel like she's then making him look bad because she's. I feel like that conversation definitely happened. Oh, Kim, by the way, when you're on the grid walk and that, people are going to, Martin's all right though, like say, yeah, it probably badge you and stuff, but yeah, just say hi, whatever, blah, 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 right? Maybe Lewis isn't sort of ballsy enough to, not saying tell her what to do, but you could sort of say this is, how it sort of is, maybe play the game, whatever. I just thought she was particularly really rude to Martin. And it wasn't like Martin was being pushy with her. It was like he just walked, oh, hi, Kim, welcome to the Grand Prix. Can we talk to Kim? And then that's obviously when mate was being a bit feisty. It's like, oh, fuck off, mate. And what annoyed me is that she then didn't even acknowledge him. She started like looking away from him, pretending to talk to him. Oh, well, have we got to be there now? And it's not like she turned around and said, oh, sorry, I've got to dash. If she turned around and went, sorry, I've got to dash, and then left, and that was her way out of it, cool, not a problem. But she completely ignored another human. Like, just like fucking rude, man. Like, really, I was watching the TV. I was thinking, "You fucking rude bitch." You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, see you once, but I'm disappointed in you, Lewis. I don't get it. It's hard to meet someone when you're that famous. That like this level, they end up meeting each other. Maybe they find some common ground in that and things. But to me, two totally different people. I know that Lewis doesn't do a lot of interviews on the grids and things like that, and that's why won so many championships. If that's your way, that's your way. But when he is then approached and stuff, I always feel like Lewis has been fairly polite. Yeah, I don't get it. And then what really, really winds me up is then we still fucking record her. We still keep following her. I don't want to watch that now. I don't want to fucking see her. Like, she's pissed me off. She's fucking rude. Don't fucking show her. But they still show her, which means that they're still giving her the fame. They're still giving her the attention. Oh, look at Kim. He sprays the champagne at the end, and she's like, get away from me. And then walks away. And it's like, just fuck off. Don't come. I want his mum back.
Yeah.
Like, she can fuck off. And I want mum back because mum's fucking awesome. Mum's cool. That's Lewis. Oh, look, that's Lewis's mum. Oh, yeah, I can sort of see why Lewis is like this now when he's with his dad. Don't get it. Kim Kardashian. Don't want you. Don't need you. Go back to whatever fucking channel you're on now. I think it's Disney. Go back to the Kardashians. Take your fucking sister with you and fucking do one. Because I don't want to fucking watch you. You piss me off. You're fucking rude. And I just, I don't even know you, but I fucking hate you.
First of all, bravo. That is exactly. I feel like you summed up the feelings of an entire Formula One paddock. I've never watched Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I've never really understood how she's so famous or makes so much money. But good on her for doing all those things. And goodness knows, look, she's changed fashion, like beauty standards.
If I wanted to watch Kim Kardashian, I'd fucking put Disney Channel on and watch Home with the Kardashians.
Contribute something, and she does, right? And so that's great. I'm all about that. And even the sports stars, the basketball players that I've never heard of because I don't watch basketball, and they seem a little bit aloof. They clearly don't know anything about Formula One, but at least they have the decency to answer a few questions or whatever, and at least pretend that they give a shit. She did not in any way look like she gave a shit. And the one thing, actually, obviously it's something that pops up on my feed on Instagram quite a lot, is it was a little flashback to Lewis when he won the title, that last corner overtaking Timo Glock. And it showed me that picture of Nicole Scherzinger jumping up and down and going absolutely crazy because her man has won the title, right? Now, obviously, Lewis wasn't winning the title here and he wasn't even winning the race, but it took me back to, I'm not a massive Nicole Scherzinger fan. I thought some of those elements of what you talked about with Kim there in terms of, she was a big kind of mega pop star in her own right. And there's a certain amount of, selling herself that she did. Again, Nicole Scherzinger versus Lewis's mum. I think we all take Lewis's mum, like no doubt. But if you look at that clip of that race.
Tell me one skill Kim has. Tell me one skill.
No, I've got no idea. But it's just, I don't care if she's got no skills. Honestly, what I care about is
you got no skills.
If you're gonna be at a race, try and care a little bit. And if you're dating one of the drivers, when they do well, look happy for them. She didn't at any point look that happy. And there was a line that she mouthed, and it was something like, well done, sweetie, or something like that. And I honestly felt like it was quite patronizing. And I just thought, get this fucking woman off my screens. I don't want to see her. She's not I don't like it when they show all of the bloody girlfriends anyway, right? Leclerc's misses or whatever and all of that. I'm not a big fan of them showing them anyway. But at least when they're showing Leclerc's misses, again, she's not jumping up and down. She's not a cheerleader. She doesn't do interviews. She doesn't do any of those things. But at least she looks like she's there for her man. And she's supporting him because this is his moment to perform in the same way as, if she was a performer, I'm sure that Leclerc would go to her gig.
Well, he wears her jewelry, doesn't she?
Right, and so they support each other. That's how couples work. So you're right.
I mean, Russell and his girlfriend are quite funny. They got a bit of wit about them,
right?
When I think they were watching Kim walk through the paddock, and they were like, "Oh, what you doing?" They're like, "Oh, we're just watching Kim come through the paddock." And they're like, "Oh, right." He goes, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, it's really entertaining." Yeah. And they're taking the piss, and I thought that was funny. That's fine, but I mean, and look, I know we're never going to get Lewis and Kim on camera. I don't fucking want it, but you're not going to get that because it's you got levels to this celebrity game, yeah. And Russell is down here with his girlfriend, and they're up there, which is what they were basically taking the piss out of.
I hate it. I don't see why he.
And I feel like everyone watches F1 would, and I just think so. Why are you doing it then? If you know that your fan base probably don't like that. Why don't you just move away from it then? Like, so it's that. So yes, she annoys me, but the F1 annoy me.
Yeah,
The
that they were
filming
even
on it.
following her. They were pandering to her. That they made any part of the race weekend about her. Like even the fact that Martin's grid walk was specifically designed so that he could end up back there
Oh,
to talk to her. And I
100%.
was just like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? Are we saying that Kim Kardashian is an important part of this race weekend? Because if we are, then the game's gone. I'm not interested in that. Fuck off, Kim Kardashian. Not you.
I'm gonna
You can
use
date Lewis Hamilton. That's fine. I agree with you. It doesn't really make sense with his personality. But yeah, maybe they get on like a house on fire when they're not the camera's not in their face. What they get up to is their own business. But yeah, I don't like that she became at least in some way the center of attention because she should not be in any way the center of attention for a Formula One weekend. All right. Any other questions?
hashtag bring mum back.
Hashtag. Yeah, we want Lewis. Bring your mum. Lewis's mum in
Yeah.
Monaco. That
If
just
it,
sounds
if
like.
it, if his mum was there, he would have been first.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Absolutely.
Max and Antonelli rivalry, robbed of Lewis and Max in the glory years. Is this the next best thing, or is it too soon?
I, where we're at right now is there's obviously no rivalry because Max is not there with the car. But I get what you're saying here. If next season or towards the end of this season, Red Bull sort their shit out and they have a car comparable to the Mercedes, I actually think that we're about to potentially, maybe not this season because I feel like Mercedes are a little bit too far in front, but it won't take a lot for Ferrari. Just need to improve a little bit. McLaren just need to improve a little bit. Monaco wasn't their race, but they are there or thereabouts. And Red Bull just need to improve a little bit, maybe a little bit more than those others. But they all don't need to improve that much versus Mercedes to all be on a par. So I'd almost go one step further. I think we could be, maybe next season, we could see potentially one of the greatest championships where we genuinely have not a Max versus Kimi, not a teammate versus teammate, but where there is a 4 or 5 or 6 person battle to win the title. And I think as
Yeah.
part of that, I think Max and Kimi would absolutely be the big protagonists. So, but even if we don't get that, if we could get Kimi versus Max in comparable cars fighting it out toe to toe for the championship, whisper it quietly. But with the fact that I think they are so similar in the way that they drive, I'm going to take the piss out of Monaco by doing, doing power drifts going around the last corner because why not? I can. I think they've both got that same sort of swagger that they drive with, and it could overboil very, very, very quickly with those two and be fan.
I think the weird thing that's happened, why? Because the reason I'm asking that question is because it sounds like I should be really excited by that, but I don't seem to be as excited as when it was then Max coming after Lewis. And I think that's why, because it should be Kimi coming after Max. What you just said, and you've nailed it, is that Max isn't there yet, which is why maybe it doesn't have the same ooh. Because if Max was still in equal machinery, and he's the Don, he's the four-time world champion, and then Kimi has now entered the room. All of a sudden, that starts to look a little bit different, doesn't it? 'Cause
I
it's like,
mean,
oh, who's this young buck? Now
yeah,
challenging
no,
Max.
I see
Whereas
your
what
point
we're
on
what
that.
we're doing is going, oh, please, Max, you need to challenge this 19-year-old. It's not. It's a little bit different. So I think it's the wrong way round. If it was the other way around, I think I would then be like really like, oh, this is so cool. Like, look at
Do you
that
not
19-year-old
think?
like going after him.
I agree that obviously, you've got a big love for a rookie going up against a world champion, a particular multi-world champion. I get that. But let's say Kimi wins the title and then next season it's Max versus Kimi, two world champions, the reigning world champion versus 4 times world champion. That would be bloody brilliant.
Again, I think it's a timing thing because it's like I also remember when Federer was going through his final when he was trying to win Wimbledon in his latter years, and I am rooting for him. Like, come on, mate, you can do this. You've got to come back. The old dog, he's still got it. Which is kind of like what I'm doing with Lewis really now. But Max is obviously not an old dog.
No.
Max is like prime. So like it's the changing of the guard, isn't it? Like that's always the sports story, isn't it? It's the changing of the guard.
And with
Like
Max,
the
it wouldn't be the
sports
change
car.
of the guard.
Uh, uh,
But that's why it could
you
be
know,
such a juicy thing, because we could genuinely, rather than it being a changing of the guard rivalry, it will be these are two young bucks, one a bit younger than the other, but they're still pretty, and then we could have sort of, 3, 4, 5 years of a brilliant rivalry. And in the way that we were robbed of the Lewis Max rivalry, maybe we wouldn't be with Kimi Max. Maybe we would, because the formulas would change. The last point that I'd say on that is that one of the great things about the Max Lewis rivalry was that they were fundamentally so different outside of the car, but also the way that they approach racing. Particularly now that Lewis was quite a bit older,
but
it was
but we also had Lewis, who had won so many world championships, been so dominant, and you had this guy that was
trying to take
for a few
mantle.
years
Yeah,
was clearly this is the next thing. And I think Kimi, he's also not been around that long. Whereas like if we're like 5 years into Kimi, and it's like, oh, he's a bit special, this kid, especially this kid, and then he's in this. It's almost like Kimi's gone too soon, and it's just the timing sort of.
I think you'll end up really enjoying it. I'm looking forward to it. I think you're thinking about it too much.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's not. It doesn't make your mouth water as other rivalries in many other sports has. Like when Nadal
Disagree.
come onto the scene
I
with
dis-
Federer,
I
was like,
disagree. I disagree. I think it could be a real winner. And actually, and if we're going to carry on the tennis analogy, we had 4 world class athletes who won every Grand Slam for like however many
oh yeah,
years.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I feel like
amazing.
we could have a similar thing here where we have 4 drivers, maybe more, who who will all be at the top of their game, and yeah, who knows who will come out of that? Will George enter the fight? Will Charles manage to
Because
hold it
my
together? Will
mouth,
Lewis bring it
we
back? There's so much to this. I feel
yeah,
like it could.
weirdly George and Russell, George and Max,
Yeah.
and
Well, they clearly
my
hate each
mouth
other
was
as
really
well.
watering
So
that, and I was loving that. But yeah, okay, interesting. Yeah, no, that's fine. We can agree to disagree.
yeah,
I feel like it would be good. I feel like it's the wrong way round, and I hope that something happens to get my mouth watering at that prospect because I'm not currently there at that. But anyway, yeah. So a long podcast for a long race with the red flag, so that makes sense. Um, oh, I wanted to mention one last thing, which was I keep forgetting to mention it, and we're at nearly 2 hours, so might as well mention it now. Kimmy's tongue is doing me nut in. It needs to stop. Have you noticed this?
no, but now I'm not going to be able to stop seeing it. What do you mean, Kimmy's tongue? Does he poke his tongue out?
I won't say any more.
Okay.
When you see Kimi Antonelli, when you watch him, just think tongue, and then next podcast, talk to me about his tongue.
Okay. All right. Let us know. Let us know if you've spotted Kimmy's tongue, or is it just Ryan going insane? Who knows? Right. We have made it to 2 hours on the podcast. If you are still listening to us, listener, then thank you very much for joining us this entire time. If you haven't made it this far, I wouldn't blame you. If you have made it this far, thank you very much for listening and giving us your time. We will see you after the race in Spain, which will be on similar sort of time next week. Until then, have a lovely weekend, and we are barely qualified. Over and out.
Yeah, toodles.
Toodles.